The colony of Auriga had always been called the jewel of the frontier. Its skies were painted in shades of violet, its mountains glittered with crystals, and its seas glowed with strange, living light. To the humans who lived there, it was a second Earth, a place where children grew under twin suns and cities reached proudly into the heavens. But beauty could not protect it. The first warning came as a trembling in the air, like a storm that carried no wind. Then the sky split open and fire rained down. The Xerac had come. They were a species older than most could comprehend, living weapons shaped like nightmares, ships grown from flesh and bone, their hulls alive with pulsing veins. They did not invade for resources. They did not come for conquest. They came to erase, to feed on the very essence of life. Auriga's defense fleet rose to meet them. Small human cruisers, brave but fragile, stood in formation above the burning planet. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway. In the capital city, Governor Elias Rourke stood on the balcony of the central tower as the world he loved was torn apart. He was not a soldier. His hair was silver, his hands scarred by years of farming before politics. Yet he felt the same fire in his chest that burned in every colonist's heart. Around him, the city trembled with impacts. Towers crumbled. The streets below filled with terrified families running toward underground shelters. The air was thick with smoke and fear. "Governor," said his aide, a young woman named Lyra. Her eyes were wide, her voice shaking. "The fleet, it's falling. The Xerac are breaking through." Rourke's throat tightened. He could see it in the sky above. Human ships bursting into flame, fragments raining down like burning stars. Each explosion was another life lost. "Tell the shelters to seal," he ordered. His voice was steady, though every word felt like a stone in his chest. "Save as many as we can." Lyra hesitated, then whispered, "What about us?" Rourke looked at her, at the smoke rising behind her pale face. He thought of his grandchildren, safe on Earth, far from this horror. He thought of the promise he had made to these colonists, to protect them, to give them hope. He managed a faint smile. "We stay," he said simply. "Leaders do not run." Above Auriga, the last cruiser, the Solace, fought alone. Its captain, Darius Cade, was a man carved from steel. His ship was battered, hull torn open in places, fires raging inside. But he refused to abandon orbit. "Keep firing," he shouted as sparks rained down from the ceiling of the bridge. "We have nothing left, Captain," cried his weapons officer. "Shields gone? Railguns offline?" "Then throw the ship at them," Cade snapped. His eyes blazed. "We may be broken, but let them remember that humans do not bow." The Solace turned, engines burning brighter than ever, and hurled itself into the heart of the enemy swarm. For one brief, shining moment, the night lit with the fury of a dying star. The Xerac reeled back, wounded but not destroyed, and then silence. The Solace was gone. On the ground, the colonists felt the shockwave as the sky tore open. Some cried in despair, others whispered prayers. But in that moment of hopelessness, something stirred in the heart of humanity. Rourke, standing tall on the balcony, raised his hand as if to touch the burning sky. "They think this is the end," he whispered. "But Earth has never ended. We endure. Always." Lyra looked at him, her tears shining in the firelight. "But no one will come. The Council has abandoned us. They said Auriga is lost." Rourke's gaze hardened. "Then they have forgotten who we are. When we lose everything, we rise from nothing. If not today, then one day soon. Far above, hidden in the void between stars, something ancient stirred. Buried, deep beneath Earth's oceans and carved into hollow moons, the hidden fleet slept in silence. Ships black as night, engines like suns waiting to ignite, waited for the signal no alien knew existed. For centuries, humanity had hidden this secret. While the galaxy mocked their weakness, humans remembered their long history, their wars, their resilience, their refusal to die quietly. The hidden fleet was their final promise, built in secret, prepared for the day when no one else would save them. Now, as Auriga's ashes scattered into the void, faint signals reached Earth. The last colony was falling. The time of silence was ending. Governor Rourke watched the city collapse. The sky was blood and fire, the air choking with smoke. Yet even as death closed in, his voice was calm. "History will not forget us," he said. "Our end will awaken." "Something greater." Lyra gripped his hand. "Greater?" Rourke nodded. His eyes, though filled with sorrow, burned with unshakable belief. "Humanity," he whispered, "always hides its strength until the world thinks us gone. And then—" Above them, the sky split again, not with Xerac fire, but with something, older, deeper, more powerful. Shadows like titans stirred in the void, their engines roaring awake after centuries of silence. The hidden fleet of Earth was rising. The Galactic Council chamber was a place of light and power. It floated inside a hollowed asteroid, its walls made of silver crystal that shimmered like frozen starlight. Around a circular table sat the leaders of 50 alien civilizations, each one ancient, each one proud. Their voices filled the hall in a storm of arguments. At the far end, a small group of humans sat quietly. They were new to this place, young compared to the other species. Most of the council still saw them as children playing at war. The news of Auriga's fall had just arrived. The Xerac swarm had consumed the colony in fire. Millions of human lives were gone. Silence filled the chamber for only a heartbeat before the debates began. Ambassador Tehran of the Vaith stood first. His body was tall and glass-like, his voice ringing like chimes. "This is proof," he declared, his tone cold. "Human colonies are weak. They attract enemies but cannot defend themselves. We must withdraw our fleets from their sectors before the Xerac drags us all into ruin." Others nodded. The insectoid Kier clicked their mandibles in agreement. A reptilian admiral hissed that the council could not waste resources on a species that could not survive its own battles. Ambassador Mara Vera of Earth rose from her seat. She was young for her role, with dark hair bound tightly behind her head, her eyes burning with grief and fury. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "You speak of us as though we are burdens," she said. "But it was our ships that stood first against the swarm. It was our people who died while your fleets stayed safe behind their borders." The chamber shifted with unease. Some aliens looked away, others sneered openly. Tehran's crystal face glimmered coldly. "And yet you lost. The swarm crushed your world in hours. You have courage, yes, but courage does not win wars." Mara's fists tightened. Her heart ached with the memory of Auriga's burning sky. She thought of the last. Transmissions, voices breaking, children crying, Captain Cade's final stand. She wanted to scream. Instead, she breathed slowly, like she had been trained, and spoke with sharp calm. "You call us fragile, but you forget. We are the ones who build when nothing is left. You may not see it yet, but humanity does not break. Not forever." The chamber filled with laughter, soft and cruel. An elder from the crystalline Yireth spoke slowly, as if to a child. "Little human, you do not understand the scale of this war. The Xerac have consumed empires greater than yours. They cannot be beaten." "Then why do you still live?" Mara shot back. "Someone stopped them before. Someone fought them. Perhaps they underestimated those people too. In the shadows of the chamber, Admiral Saren of the Threx observed, silently. His race were warriors, tall, armored, and sharp as blades. His golden eyes studied Mara with something close to respect. He remembered the reports of human tactics, reckless yet brilliant, turning nebula storms into weapons. But he remained quiet. The council was not ready to hear him speak in her favor. The debate raged on. Voices clashed, alliances shifted. The verdict slowly became clear. The council would not send reinforcements to Earth's colonies. They would close their borders, protect their own, and let humanity face its fate alone. When the decision was spoken aloud, Mara felt her chest tighten. It was not surprise. She had feared this outcome. But the finality of it struck like a blade. Auriga had been sacrificed, and now Earth itself stood on the edge of abandonment. She stood tall anyway. "If you abandon us," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber, "do not expect us to beg. Humanity will fight with or without you. And when the swarm comes for your worlds, remember who faced them first." Her words echoed. Some looked away in shame. Others smirked, unmoved. After the session ended, Mara walked alone through the silver corridors of the station. Her reflection followed her in the crystal walls, her face pale with exhaustion. She thought of Auriga, of the millions lost, of Captain Cade's sacrifice. The pain pressed down like a mountain, yet deep within, another feeling stirred. Fury. "They think we are finished," she whispered to herself. "They have no idea what waits in the dark." A soft sound came behind her. Admiral Saren's heavy steps echoed in the hall. "You spoke well," he said, his voice like gravel. Mara turned sharply. "You stayed silent while they condemned us." Saren tilted his head. "The council is blind, but I know this. A cornered predator is the most dangerous. Your species may yet prove itself." His golden eyes glimmered. "Do not waste your fury. Make it into fire." And with that, he walked away, leaving Mara with a strange spark of hope. That night, she sent a coded message across the void, not to the council, not to the Alliance fleets, but to Earth. The message was short, her voice steady, though her hands shook. "They will not help us. We are alone." But perhaps that is how it was always meant to be. The colonies are burning. Auriga has fallen. If there is any strength left, any hidden blade we have kept from their eyes, now is the time to wake it. Far across the stars, deep beneath oceans and hollow moons, old machines stirred. Ancient engines hummed. Shadows moved. In hidden hangars, the hidden fleet was listening. Beneath the waves of Earth's deepest oceans, far below where sunlight could ever reach, a vast chamber slept. No fish swam here. No sensors from alien allies had ever found it. Hidden inside trenches deeper than mountains, the hangars stretched. For miles, carved into stone by machines that had worked in silence for centuries. In the dark, ships rested. They were not like the fragile cruisers that had died at Auriga. These were giants, war machines built in secret, armored like mountains. Their engines as quiet as a held breath. They waited, silent and patient, as if the ocean itself guarded them. And then, the signal came. It was faint, carried through encrypted channels, a voice wrapped in grief and fury. The voice of Ambassador Mara Vera. "They will not help us. We are alone. If there is any hidden strength, any weapon we have kept, now is the time to wake it." The words reached command stations buried under ice caps, deep within dead moons, and hidden in caverns hollowed from asteroids. For a long moment, silence remained. Then, one by one, lights flickered alive. Engines groaned. The hidden fleet began to stir. Commander Arik Hale stood inside the central control chamber beneath the Pacific Ocean. His face was lined by years of service, his eyes gray with memory. He had been one of the first to swear the oath of silence, to keep the existence of this fleet secret even from Earth's own governments. For decades, he had waited in shadows, training crews who could never speak of what they served. Now, as alarms lit the chamber in red, he felt his heart pound with something fierce and terrible. "So," he murmured, his voice deep, "the day has come." Beside him, Engineer Kalen adjusted controls, his hands shaking. "We never thought it would," he admitted. "We prayed it wouldn't." Hale's jaw tightened. "But we built it anyway, because humans do not pray for safety without also building the shield." The great monitors lit up, one by one. Hangar. Doors began to open. Ocean water poured into the caverns. Massive black ships slowly rose, their armored hulls gleaming with ghostly light. As they ascended, whales and deep-sea creatures scattered, sensing the awakening of giants. In the frozen silence of Luna's far side, another fleet stirred. Buried in caverns beneath the gray dust, launch doors cracked open. The ground trembled as ships crawled out, engines glowing faintly blue. These vessels were leaner, built for speed, their designs sharp and angular like blades. Colonel Idris, Rourke, son of Governor Elias Rourke of Auriga, watched them rise with clenched fists. He had not heard from his father in days. He had seen the flames of Auriga's fall through intercepted feeds before the signals went dark. "They died believing no one would come," Idris whispered, his throat raw. "They died thinking humanity was abandoned." He placed his hand on the cold steel of the ship beside him. "I swear, Father, they will see we are not broken. They will see the fire you believed in." His officers stood behind him, silent but resolute. They had all lost. Someone on Auriga, every man and woman in the hidden fleet carried the same wound, the same fury. Meanwhile, deep inside Mars' hollow mountains, factories that had slept for decades roared back to life. Automated arms moved with precision, refueling warships, loading munitions long kept in silence. The entire planet trembled as the old engines warmed. Children on the surface colonies looked up at the crimson sky, wondering at the strange vibrations beneath their feet. Their parents said nothing, only exchanged looks heavy with secrets. They had always known something lay hidden. They had never guessed its size. The awakening was not sudden. It was a slow rising, like a great beast stirring from centuries of slumber. On Earth, storms raged above the oceans as massive carriers broke the surface, waves crashing against their armored hulls. People on distant coastlines watched in awe and terror as the sea itself seemed to birth titans. On Luna, sharp-winged ships lifted into orbit, their thrusters cutting bright scars into the void. On Mars, fleets launched in silence, forming formations that glowed against the red horizon. Across the system, transmissions crackled with a single signal, repeated over and over, carried into the void like a heartbeat. "We are awake." Inside the Pacific Command Chamber, Commander Hale addressed his officers. His voice carried the weight of generations. "The Council thinks us children," he said. "The galaxy thinks us fragile. The Xerac think us food. But they will learn. Humanity never shows its full hand until the hour is darkest. We build in silence. We endure humiliation. And when they think us broken, we rise." A cheer rose. From the chamber, raw and fierce. It was not the cheer of victory, but of a people refusing to surrender. Above Earth, the first wave of ships formed into black phalanxes. Their hulls bore no names, only numbers, but every crew knew the truth. They were the promise of humanity, hidden away for centuries, waiting for this very moment. Admiral Kale's voice rang through the fleet, her transmission carried from the Council station to Earth itself. "They will not fight for us," she said, her tone burning like iron. So we will fight for ourselves. The swarm believes we are alone. The council believes we are broken. Let us prove them all wrong. For Auriga, for Earth, for every world yet to fall. The crews responded as one, their voices shaking with fury and pride. For humanity! Engines roared, shaking the void, and for the first time since the Xerox return, the galaxy felt a new tremor, not of fear, but of awakening. The void between stars had always been silent, but now it trembled. Across Earth's system, the hidden fleet gathered. Hundreds of ships rose from oceans, moons, and mountains, engines glowing like newborn stars. They moved without fanfare, without the polished pride of the Council's vessels. These ships were darker, sharper, built not for show, but for war. Commander Arik Hale stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn, the largest carrier ever built by human hands. Around him, screens flickered with fleet formations. He watched the icons multiply, frigates, cruisers, carriers, even old prototypes once thought impossible to fly. Humanity's hidden heart was revealing itself. Beside him, his second officer, Lyra Dane, whispered in awe, "I never believed it was this big. All these years. We had this?" Hale did not smile. His eyes were set on the dark beyond the window. "We built it because we knew one day no one would come, and that day has arrived." The Council had not yet seen the signal. The transmission was encrypted, sent only to the hidden human channels scattered across colonies. It was short, carried in a single steady voice. "Ambassador Mara Veras, this is humanity's hour. The hidden fleet is awake. All surviving colonies, stand by. We are coming." The words spread like wildfire. On broken mining stations, workers paused and wept. On worlds that had believed themselves abandoned, families gathered around old radios, listening with renewed hope. The thought of Earth's secret armada stirred something primal in their hearts. Belief. But the Xerox were not idle. Far across the void, their swarm spread like an infection. Their ships were alive, organic, pulsating with sickly light, wings like blades of bone. They did not travel in neat formations. They moved like predators, shifting, circling, surrounding. And now, one spearhead of the swarm was turning toward Earth's sector. On their organic flagship, the Swarm Queen sensed something stir. Her tendrils brushed against her ship's flesh as she tasted vibrations in the void. "Awakening," she hissed through layers of chittering tongues. "The prey is not quiet anymore." Her brood responded with screeches that shook the walls. The swarm quickened. Back in Earth's orbit, fleets aligned. Colonel Idris Rourke, still grieving for his father lost on Auriga, paced the bridge of his frigate, the Vigilant Flame. His fists clenched behind his back, his voice low but firm. "They are coming. I feel it." His crew glanced at him with quiet fear. Many were young, trained in silence, never before tested in real war. Idris looked at each of them and forced strength into his voice. "My father died on Auriga believing no one would save us. But today, we will prove him wrong. Today, we are the storm." The words settled in their hearts like steel. The signal went out one last time. This time, not to colonies, but to the void itself. On every human ship, the same message pulsed into space. Not words, but a rhythm, like a heartbeat. 3 beats, pause. 3 beats, pause. It was old, older than the Council, older than most species in the galaxy. A code humanity had carried through wars on Earth, through centuries of survival. The meaning was simple: we are here, we are alive, we are ready. The response came swiftly. At the edge of Sol's system, sensors screamed. The swarm had arrived. Dozens, then hundreds of organic ships spilled from the dark. Their wings shimmered with venomous light, their bodies dripping trails of acidic fire. They swarmed like locusts, blotting out stars. On the Iron Dawn, alarms blared. Hale's crew scrambled, voices sharp. "They're here! Massive biocarriers detected, counting 200, 300! Lyra turned to Hale, her face pale. "We're outnumbered!" Hale did not flinch. He looked out at the darkness, at the first sight of the enemy that had devoured Auriga. His chest ached with rage, but his voice was steady. "Numbers don't win wars. Resolve does." The fleets faced each other across the gulf of space. The swarm pulsed and shifted, moving as though alive. The hidden fleet held its formation, silent, waiting. For a heartbeat, the void was still. Then the signal changed. Launch. The first wave of human ships surged forward. Sleek frigates darted into the darkness, weaving in complex maneuvers. Behind them, heavy cruisers ignited railguns, firing slugs of steel that screamed through the void. Carriers released squadrons of fighters, their engines flaring like sparks in the night. The Zirak roared back. Their living ships spat acidic plasma, glowing rivers of green that cut across the black. Dozens of fighters vanished in fire, but the humans did not scatter. They weaved together, turning plasma storms into traps, guiding the enemy fire back, toward their own ranks. On the vigilant flame, Idris Rourke leaned forward, eyes locked on his screens. "Hold steady," he ordered. "Let them come closer." The swarm dove. Their bioships screamed toward the frigate. At the last instant, Idris gave the order. Now, the vigilant flame spun, igniting its engines in a burst of light. At the Babiabai. Same time, hidden mines it had dropped seconds earlier detonated. A wave of fire ripped through the enemy line, shredding dozens of ships at once. His crew cheered. Idris only clenched his jaw. That's for Auriga. All across the battlefield, humanity fought with fire born of desperation. They did not fight like the Council fleets. Rigid, cautious, measured. They fought like predators cornered, wild, yet cunning. Every asteroid, every gravity well, every fragment of wreckage became a weapon in their hands. The swarm, so used to prey that fled in panic, found itself bleeding. For the first time, the Zirak hesitated. In the council chambers far away, news feeds streamed the impossible. The humans, fragile, reckless humans, were holding against the swarm. Ambassadors who once laughed at them now sat in silence, their crystalline and scaled faces pale with shock. "They should have been destroyed already," whispered Tehran of the Vaith. But Admiral Saren of the Threx only smiled faintly, his golden eyes glimmering. "I told you, cornered predators." Back in Seoul, as the battle raged, Commander Hale stood tall on the bridge of the Iron Dawn. His crew's voices blurred into the background. His gaze was fixed on the swarm ahead, endless and hungry. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer, "This is only the beginning." And with a single raised hand, he gave the order that would shake the stars. "Bring the fleet into the fire." The hidden fleet surged forward, not as prey, but as hunters. The void burned with light and death. The Zirak swarm had come like a storm, their living ships darkening the stars, wings spread wide like carrion birds. Acid fire poured from their vessels, rivers of green flame carving through the darkness. Against them, the hidden fleet surged forward, Earth's secret, silent giants awakened at last. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Commander Arik Hale gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. His crew shouted around him, their voices a storm of tension. "Frigate Wing Delta is gone." "Multiple breaches on the Vigilant Flame, they're still holding formation." "Enemy numbers rising, 400. Hale's heart pounded, but his face was stone. "Hold the line, push them back." Colonel Idris Rourke stood inside the smoke-filled bridge of the Vigilant Flame. Sparks rained from shattered panels, and half his screens were dark. His ship had taken a beating, but it was still in the fight. "Helm, bring us around," he barked. "Target that carrier," the helm officer shouted back. "Sir, our shields are down. If we close anyway," Idris roared. His voice was raw, carrying the weight of Auriga's ashes. "We will not drift while others—" "Bleed! Take us in!" The vigilant flame plunged forward, weaving between streams of plasma. Fighters swarmed its hull, clawing at its armor like insects. But the frigate's guns fired back with relentless fury, tearing holes through the biocarrier's flesh. When the final torpedo struck, the alien beast exploded, its screams echoing across the void. Idris swayed against the shockwave, his lips curling in a grim smile. "That's for my father." The swarm answered with rage. Massive biocruisers moved in, spitting clouds of acidic spores that corroded metal on contact. Human ships burst apart, their wreckage scattering like burning embers. Entire squadrons of fighters vanished in seconds, consumed by green fire. On the Iron Dawn, Lyra Dane shouted, "We're losing too many! If this keeps up—" "They'll break us," Hale finished quietly. His eyes hardened. "But numbers aren't everything. Ready the Stormlance batteries." The crew froze. The Stormlances were prototypes, never tested in real battle. Enormous weapons buried deep within the carriers, capable of releasing compressed energy blasts powerful enough to shatter small moons. But no one knew if they would hold, or if they would tear the ships apart from within. Lyra swallowed. "Sir, if they fail—" "Then we fail with them," Hale said simply. Fire. The Stormlances unleashed. From the sides of the Iron Dawn and its sister carriers, beams of searing white light cut through the void like divine fire. The blasts tore across the battlefield, burning through swarm cruisers, slicing entire clusters of ships into nothing but ash. The void itself seemed to scream with the power unleashed. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Even the swarm recoiled. Then the cheer came. Across every human ship, voices rose in raw, defiant triumph. "We can do this! We can win!" But victory was not so simple. The Stormlances dimmed, their power cores overheating, leaving the carriers vulnerable. The swarm seized its chance. Closing in like a tide, dozens of bioships hurled themselves against the Iron Dawn, claws tearing at its armor, plasma ripping across its hull. The great ship groaned, decks shuddering, alarms howling. "Shields collapsing!" An officer shouted. "We can't take another wave!" Hale stood unmoving, eyes locked on the chaos outside. His mind raced. He thought of Earth's oceans, of his daughter's laughter before he left, of the oath he had sworn when this fleet was hidden. "We will not die in silence." He whispered, "Not today." Elsewhere, Idris Rourke saw the danger. The swarm had focused on the Iron Dawn. If the flagship fell, morale would shatter. His ship was bleeding, his crew exhausted, but his decision was clear. "Helm," he said, voice low and firm. "Take us straight into them." The helm officer stared at him. "Sir, that's suicide." Idris's eyes burned. "It's sacrifice. Do it." The vigilant flame turned, engines roaring as it charged directly at the swarm ships encircling the Iron Dawn. Guns blazing, the frigate rammed into the thickest cluster of enemies, detonating every missile it had left. The explosion lit the void like a second sun, scattering the attackers in a storm of fire. On the Iron Dawn, the pressure eased. The carrier pulled free, battered but alive. Hale's throat tightened as the comms went silent. The vigilant flame was gone. In the council chambers far away, ambassadors watched the feeds in stunned silence. The humans were not retreating. Even when crushed, even when dying, they fought with a ferocity the galaxy had never seen. "They throw themselves into fire," whispered one crystalline elder. They turned death into weapons, another said softly. Admiral Saren of the Threx allowed himself a grim smile. Now you see, this is humanity. The battle raged on for hours. Ships were torn apart, the void littered with wreckage, but the hidden fleet did not falter. Every loss fueled their fury. Every scream became a promise. They fought not only for Earth, but for Auriga, for every world already lost, for every voice, silenced by the swarm. At last, as the swarm pulled back, their losses too heavy to ignore, a hush fell across the battlefield. Human ships, though broken and scarred, remained in formation. Their guns still pointed forward. Their engines still burned. In the silence that followed, Commander Hale's voice carried across the fleet. We are bloodied, but we are unbroken. Today, they learned that humanity does not yield. And though the stars around them were filled with ash, the crews cheered, voices echoing in defiance across the black. The void was quiet after the first great clash. Broken ships drifted like ghosts, their fires glowing faintly against the endless dark. Human crews tended to their wounds, repairing shattered hulls, pulling the living from wreckage. Yet even in silence, they all knew the battle was not over. The swarm would come again. Commander Auric Hale stood alone on the command deck of the Iron Dawn. His face was pale, lined with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with unbroken fire. He looked out at the stars, at the smoke and ashes left behind. The vigilant flame's sacrifice weighed heavy on him. Lyra Dane approached quietly. Her uniform was torn, her arm wrapped in bandages, but her voice was steady. They'll return. Stronger, they'll want revenge. Hale nodded slowly. Yes, and when they do, we will show them that humanity does not break twice. On the far edge of the fleet, smaller ships gathered in formation. Pilots of the fighter wings stood ready, their helmets resting under their arms. Faces young and old, eyes full of fear, but also determination. Among them was Lieutenant Juno Marek, a survivor of Auriga. She had lost her entire family when the colony burned. She whispered to her squad, "Today we fight for more than survival. We fight so no other child watches their world burn." Her words spread like a spark, igniting courage in the hearts around her. The pilots climbed into their fighters. Engines roared one by one until the void shook with the sound of humanity's will. The swarm returned. From the shadows of a dying star, their ships poured forth again, endless, crawling, hissing with hunger. Their numbers blotted out constellations, a tide of living machines driven by instinct to consume. This time, the humans did not charge blindly. Hale had studied their patterns. The swarm was strong, but it was not clever. It moved like an ocean, overwhelming, but predictable. That was where humanity would strike. "Signal all ships," Hale ordered. "Phase 2 begins now." The plan unfolded like a blade hidden in darkness. Human frigates broke away, scattering into smaller groups. They darted through asteroid fields, weaving between debris, luring clusters of swarm ships into traps. Mines planted in silence exploded with sudden fury, tearing through alien hulls. Juno's fighter wing raced through the chaos, drawing enemies away from larger ships. Her hands shook on the controls, but her voice was steady over the comms. "Stay close. Trust each other. Remember, every second we steal is another second for Earth." Her squad answered with a single word. "For Earth!" On the Iron Dawn, the crew unleashed a storm of strategy. Stormlance batteries were charged again, not for brute destruction this time, but as precision strikes. Each blast carved corridors. Through the swarm, opening gaps for frigates to slip in and strike vital nodes. The aliens, confused by the sudden coordination, faltered. They pressed forward, but their tide no longer swallowed everything whole. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more struck back, carrying the fight deeper into the swarm's heart. Colonel Idris Rourke's sacrifice was not forgotten. His crew's bravery had sparked something in every human aboard the fleet. Even the wounded refused to rest. Engineers worked with bloodied hands, soldiers reloaded weapons despite burns, medics fought exhaustion to keep the dying alive. In one quiet corner of the med bay, a young boy pulled from a wreck whispered, "Will we live?" The medic, tears streaking her face, forced a smile. "We are human. We always live." Those words passed from mouth to mouth, becoming a whisper across the fleet. A promise. Hours dragged into endless fighting. The swarm pushed harder, throwing their greatest beasts into the fray. Gigantic hive ships loomed, their maws glowing with energy, preparing to release devastation that could shatter the human fleet in a single blast. Hale clenched his jaw. "If they fire, we're finished." Lyra's eyes flicked to him. "Then we don't give them the chance. What do we have left?" Hale looked at the tactical board. The swarm's hive ship was surrounded by its brood, nearly impenetrable. Nearly. His gaze hardened. "Juno's squadron. They're fast enough." Lyra hesitated. "That's a suicide run." "Not if they believe," Hale said softly. The order went out. Juno listened in silence, her heart pounding. She thought of her parents, her brother's laughter, the fire that had taken them. She thought of Auriga's ashes. Slowly she closed her eyes and whispered, "For them." Her squadron dove into the storm. Enemy fire lit the void, streams of plasma and acid weaving like burning rain. Fighters exploded around her, but Juno pressed on, weaving through fire with desperate skill. Her ship shook, alarms screaming, but she never faltered. "Almost there!" she cried. The squadron broke through the last wave. The hive ship loomed. Before them, its glowing maw opening wider, light gathering for the killing strike. Juno locked her torpedoes, her voice shaking. "This is for Auriga. This is for Earth." Her squad fired together. Dozens of torpedoes streaked forward, vanishing into the hive ship's glowing maw. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, the explosion lit the heavens. The hive ship's core detonated, ripping it apart from within. The blast consumed its brood, shattering the swarm's heart. Shockwaves rolled across the void, scattering enemy ships like leaves in a storm. Juno's comms went silent. Her fighter was caught in the blast. Her signal vanished into static. When the light faded, silence returned once more. The swarm was broken, scattered, leaderless. They drifted away into the void. The hidden fleet had survived. On the Iron Dawn, Commander Hale lowered his head. He thought of Juno, of Idris, of all the names that would never be spoken again. But he also thought of what had been proven here, what the galaxy had seen. Humanity did not win through strength. They won through sacrifice, through unity, through the fire that refused to die, even in the coldest dark. Hale whispered, almost to himself, "We are the storm they never expected." The wreckage of the swarm still drifted in the void like broken bones of a great beast. Flames flickered in silence, casting ghostly light across the shattered battlefield. The hidden fleet of Earth had survived. But survival was not victory. Their ships were scarred, their crews weary, and their numbers fewer than before. Commander Auric Hale stood at the viewport of the Iron Dawn, watching the fragments of the destroyed hive ship spin into darkness. His face was pale, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He knew this was only the beginning. The swarm would return, perhaps not here, perhaps not tomorrow, but it would return. Lyra Dane entered the bridge, her steps steady despite her exhaustion. She carried reports in her hands, but her voice was quiet when she spoke. "The fleet is damaged. We've lost 37 ships. Supplies are running low and—" She paused, her throat tightening. "Juno's squad never came back." Silence settled over the bridge, Faces turned away, unable to speak. Hale closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. "They gave us this chance," he said. "We won't waste it." Far from the battlefield, deep within the core worlds of the Galactic Alliance, news of the battle reached alien leaders. In the Hall of Concord, vast and shining, council members of a dozen species gathered. The towering Yelvori, their crystalline forms shimmering, spoke first. The humans should not have survived. By all calculations, they were destined to fall. The scaled voice of the Varric overlord followed. And yet they endure. Their hidden fleet is no myth. It is real. They destroyed a hive ship. Across the chamber, many aliens whispered in disbelief. Hive ships were said to be unstoppable. Even the most advanced fleets had lost to them. That humanity, small, late to the stars, reckless, had managed such. A feat was unthinkable. The elder of the Sarathi, a being with silver tendrils flowing like water, finally spoke. "They are dangerous, but perhaps not for us. Perhaps for our enemies." Back in the void, the humans began to rebuild. Engineers floated across fractured hulls, welding torn metal. Medics worked tirelessly, turning bloodied bays into makeshift hospitals. Children rescued from colonies huddled together, staring wide-eyed at the endless stars. Among them sat a boy named Kyle, clutching the flight pin of Lieutenant Juno Merrick. A survivor had given it to him after she was lost. He held it tightly, whispering her name, promising he would remember. Moments like these spread across the fleet. Quiet grief, but also quiet fire. Every death became fuel for the living. Every loss became another reason to fight. Commander Hale called his officers together. Lyra Dane stood by his side, joined by Admiral Celine Vey, who had taken command of the second surviving fleet wing. Holograms of their battered ships flickered before them. "We cannot wait for the swarm to recover," Hale said. His voice was firm, though his body was heavy with fatigue. "We strike first. We take the fight to them." Admiral Vey frowned. "Our ships are wounded. Our people exhausted. If we push further, we could break." Lyra looked between them. "Or we could show the galaxy something greater, that humanity does not wait to die, that we hunt death itself." For a long moment, silence. Then Hale raised his head. "She's right. If we fall standing, then at least we fall as humans." The officers nodded one by one. The decision was made. The next days were filled with preparation. Frigates were patched, fighters rearmed, supply ships scavenged from wreckage. Crews volunteered without hesitation, even when their wounds had barely healed. Humanity had always been at its strongest when it had nothing left to lose. Kyle, the boy who held Juno's pin, stood among the workers, carrying tools twice his size. When asked why, he only said, "She fought for us. I can work for them." His small voice lit a fire in many who had begun to doubt. The swarm's next strike came sooner than expected. From the shadow of a gas giant, another wave appeared, smaller than before but no less deadly. They came in silence, their living hulls glowing with poisonous light. This time the humans were ready. Fleets moved in perfect coordination, weaving patterns of attack the swarm could not anticipate. They struck not with brute force, but with cunning, hiding ships in nebulae, luring enemies into minefields, striking weak points with precision. Every tactic was born of desperation, but desperation had always been humanity's weapon. The battle raged for hours. Alien eyes across the galaxy watched in disbelief as transmissions reached them. The humans were not only surviving, they were winning. Ships that should have fallen held their ground. Fighters that should have scattered flew in perfect unity, and at the heart of it all was Commander Hale's voice. "Stand together, strike as one. Remember, every second we live is another second we steal from death." When the swarm broke apart once more, retreating into the void, The hidden fleet stood bloodied but unbroken. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Lyra whispered, "Twice, now, twice we've held." Hale looked at her, his voice heavy but certain. "Not held. Proved." She frowned. "Proved what?" "That humanity is not prey. Not anymore." Far away in the Hall of Concord, the alien council watched the final recordings of the battle. The room was silent, every being shaken by what they had seen. The Yelvori elder finally spoke. "We thought them fragile. We thought them reckless. We were wrong." The Sarathi tendrils shimmered with awe. "Humans carry something no calculation can measure. Something no other race has shown." "And what is that?" asked the Varak overlord. The Sarathi elder's voice was soft, almost reverent. "They carry fire, and fire spreads." The galaxy had begun to see humanity not as weaklings, not as latecomers to the stars, but as something far more dangerous. And deep in the silence of space, as wreckage drifted and stars burned, the hidden fleet prepared for the next storm. Because humanity knew the truth now, the war was not about survival anymore. It was about proving to the universe that Earth's fire would never die. The stars around the hidden fleet burned cold and distant, silent witnesses to humanity's struggle. Ships floated in tight formation, patched with hurried repairs. Scarred metal bore the marks of battles barely survived. Yet within those battered hulls, a quiet fire glowed stronger than before. Commander Arik Hale stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn, studying the latest intelligence reports. His eyes were heavy, but there was determination in every line of his face. They had fought the D swarm twice and lived, something no other race in the galaxy had ever done. But Hale knew the enemy was learning. The next wave would not be easy. Lyra Dane entered carrying a thin tablet. Her voice was cautious. "We've intercepted transmissions from the Alliance Council. They're watching us closely." Hale did not look surprised. "Let them watch. They need to see." Lyra frowned. "It isn't all admiration. Some call us reckless. Others think we're dangerous. There are whispers. Plans to contain us before we grow too strong." Far away, in the Hall of Concord, the Galactic Alliance debated. The chamber shimmered with light, filled with representatives of countless worlds. The Yelvori delegate, crystalline, body glowing with cold blue light, spoke sharply. "Humanity is unstable. Twice they faced the swarm. Twice they survived. But at what cost? Their methods are unpredictable. Their courage borders on madness." The scaled Varak overlord hissed in reply. "And yet madness defeats the swarm. No other fleet has achieved such victory." The Sarathi elder, silver tendrils swaying like liquid light, added quietly, "Perhaps the humans are not unstable. Perhaps they are different. They carry something beyond calculation." The hall erupted with debate. Some called for alliance, others for isolation. Fear and awe wrestled in every word. Back in the void, humanity worked tirelessly. Crews repaired broken ships, engineers forged new weapons from scavenged wreckage, and children painted stars on steel walls to hide the scars of war. Grief lingered, but it was not paralyzing. It had become fuel. One night in the medical bay, Admiral Celine Vey visited the wounded. Rows of soldiers lay in silence, some bandaged, some missing limbs, all carrying the same tired fire in their eyes. A young pilot, barely more than a boy, grabbed her hand as she passed. "Promise me," he whispered, voice trembling, "that Earth will live." Vey knelt, her own throat tight. "Earth is more than a place, soldier. It's in us. As long as we fight, it lives." The boy smiled faintly before sleep claimed him. Her heart ached, but she stood straighter afterward. Soon after, a strange message arrived. It was encrypted in a way only a human mind could unravel. Messy, illogical, yet brilliant in its simplicity. Lyra cracked it within hours, her eyes widening as she read. "It's from the Sarathi," she whispered. "They want to speak in secret." The message was cautious, almost fearful, but it carried respect. The Sarathi wished to open hidden channels, offering information about swarm movements. They called humanity the fire in the dark. Hale listened silently, then finally said, "If one species sees us as more than chaos, then the fire spreads already." Not all messages carried hope. A second transmission, intercepted days later, told a different story. This one came from the Yelvori, a warning to others in the Alliance. Humanity must not be allowed to rise. Their resilience makes them dangerous. Better to break the fire before it becomes a storm. Lyra slammed the tablet on the table. "They want to betray us. After everything." Hale remained calm, though his jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what we do." Preparations for the next battle filled every hour. Scouts reported signs of swarm movement, bigger than before, a tide gathering in the darkness. Humanity's time was short. Still, in those brief moments of quiet, there was humanity itself. Music played on old instruments, laughter in mess halls, stories told of Earth's oceans and forests. They had lost their world, yet carried it inside them. Kyle, the boy with Juno's pin, sat beside Lyra one evening. His small voice broke the silence. "Do you think she knows? That we're still fighting?" Lyra's heart clenched. She touched his shoulder. "She knows. Every star we pass carries their memory." Kyle nodded, gripping the pin tighter. His eyes, though young, carried the same fire as the commanders and soldiers around him. The next council of officers met in the war chamber. Holograms of swarm. Fleets loomed large, thousands of living ships converging. Admiral Vey's voice was grim. "If these reports are true, this will be the largest swarm ever recorded. If we stand against extinction." Lyra glanced at Hale. "And if we fall?" Hale looked at every face in the chamber. "Then let us fall in such a way that the galaxy never forgets humanity stood." Word spread across the fleet. No one was forced to fight, yet no one left. From the oldest veterans to the youngest cadets, from scarred engineers to frightened refugees, all stayed. Humanity had been underestimated too long. Now they were something more, a storm waiting to break. In the Hall of Concord, whispers of the coming swarm reached alien ears. Some trembled at the thought. Some calculated their odds. But for the first time, many asked the same question. What if humanity wins? The Sarathi elders' answer lingered in the chamber like a prophecy. Then the galaxy will change forever. In the void, the hidden fleet burned its engines, turning toward the storm. Their ships were not the strongest. Their weapons were not the most advanced. Their numbers were not the greatest. But their hearts were unbroken. Their fire was rising. And in the silence before battle, humanity prepared to write a legend in the stars. The void trembled as the swarm came. Thousands upon thousands of living ships darkened the stars, their movements like a tide of nightmares. Their bodies pulsed with sickly light, their wings of bone and shadow stretching across space. They were hunger given form, and they had found humanity's last stand. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, silence hung heavy. Every crew member stared at the monstrous wall of enemies closing in. Even the veterans, scarred from countless battles, felt the weight of despair. The swarm was endless. Commander Arik Hale stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back. His voice, calm and steady, broke the silence. "They think we will break. They think we will scatter. But today, we show them what it means to be human." Admiral Celine Vey's image flickered on the comm screen. Her eyes burned with resolve. The fleet is ready. No retreat, no surrender. If we fall as one. A murmur swept across the ships. Soldiers tightened their grips on weapons. Engineers whispered prayers. Children clutched keepsakes of Earth. Hope and fear mixed together. But through it all, one truth remained. No. One turned away. The swarm struck first. A wave of bioplasma rained down, searing shields, tearing metal apart. Ships shook violently. Alarms screamed, corridors filled with smoke. "Shields failing!" cried an officer. "Return fire!" Hale shouted. The fleet unleashed its fury. Railguns spat fire. Torpedoes streaked like burning spears and experimental. Pulse cannons glowed with stolen alien technology. Human ships were smaller, weaker, but they fought like cornered wolves. Every blast that landed tore chunks from swarm creatures. Still, the tide pressed forward. The Iron Dawn shuddered as a swarm. Leviathan rammed its shields. Sparks cascaded across the bridge. Lyra Dane steadied herself, blood on her forehead, eyes blazing. "We can't hold this line forever." Hale's voice remained steady. "We won't. We hold until the time is right." Deep within the fleet, Cale sat in the evacuation bay, clutching Juno's pin. Around him, frightened children huddled together, but his eyes stayed locked on the display screen above. He watched as the swarm hammered the ships that carried them. He whispered to himself as if to Juno, "We're still here. We're not done." Then came the plan. For weeks, engineers had worked in silence on a weapon no alien would dare imagine. Not a bomb. Not a gun. Something far more dangerous. A collapsing star, captured long ago in secret experiments, now hidden in a warhead deep within the fleet. Humanity had named it the Ember of Earth, a weapon that would not only destroy ships, but twist the fabric of space itself. Admiral Vey's voice cut through the comm channels. "Prepare the Ember! All squadrons clear the path!" The fleet erupted into motion. Fighters swarmed ahead, weaving between leviathans, drawing their fire. Frigates broke. Formation, burning engines bright, sacrificing themselves to carve an opening. The swarm closed in, tearing ships apart, but humanity refused to yield. On the Iron Dawn, Lyra's hands flew across the console. "Coordinates set. If this works, we'll collapse half the swarm into the void." "And if it doesn't?" asked an officer. Hale's eyes were steel. "Then we go with it." The weapon armed. A sphere of unstable light pulsed within its core, like a piece of a dying sun. Humanity was about to gamble everything on a weapon born of desperation and brilliance. But the swarm sensed it. The leviathans howled, wings spreading wide, rushing toward the Ember. If they reached it before activation, humanity's last hope would be crushed. "Protect the Ember," Vey commanded, and humanity answered. The Iron Dawn surged forward, ramming through swarm beasts, railguns blazing. Destroyers flanked it, firing until their guns ran dry. Fighters flew suicide runs, detonating themselves to clear the way. The void became fire and chaos, yet through it all, the Ember burned brighter. Then betrayal struck. A sudden transmission pierced the fleet's channels. Yelvori ships, gleaming cold and blue, emerged from warp. But instead of joining the battle, "They targeted the humans. They mean to destroy the Ember," Lyra shouted. The bridge froze. Humanity's greatest ally had turned enemy. Fear surged, but only for a moment. Hale's voice cut through. "Let them try." The Iron Dawn shifted course, guns blazing at the Yelvori. Explosions lit the void, as human firepower clashed with alien treachery. The swarm pressed closer. Yelvori rained plasma, and yet humanity held. Admiral Vey's final order rang across every channel. "Activate the Ember! Now!" The void screamed. Light tore across the battlefield, a sun igniting where none should exist. The ember collapsed space itself, dragging swarm Leviathans and Yelvori warships alike into a spiraling abyss. Their screams echoed through the ether as they were torn apart. Human ships shuddered, shields cracking, but they held formation just beyond the collapse. The fleet shook as if the universe itself resisted their survival. Kale clutched Juno's pin as the light engulfed the stars. Tears filled his eyes, but not of fear. They were tears of pride. When the light faded, silence reigned. Half the swarm was gone, ripped from existence. The rest, scattered and broken, fled into the dark. The Yelvori traders lay in ruins, their betrayal consumed by the fire. The hidden fleet still floated, scarred and bleeding, but alive. Against the impossible, humanity had endured. On the bridge, Lyra collapsed into her chair, whispering, "We did it." Hale stood tall, eyes fixed on the stars. His voice was quiet, but carried across the comms. They thought humanity was ashes. They thought we were nothing. But today, the galaxy saw our fire. Admiral Vey's tired voice followed, filled with pride. Let the stars remember this day. Humanity does not break. Humanity burns. In the Hall of Concord, news spread. Like wildfire, the Sarathi elder spoke in awe, her silver tendrils glowing brighter than ever. They did what no one else dared. They gambled with the void and won. The age of humanity has begun. And across the stars, survivors of Earth whispered the same words, a vow carried on every breath. We are still here.